My name is Emily Walker, and I am 32 years old. Our annual family gathering at my parents' lake house took a shocking turn when my father suddenly stood up, staring directly at me and asked, "What did you do with the $200,000?" I froze, genuinely confused by his accusation. My sister Natalie, sitting across from me, turned ghostly pale. Her eyes darted nervously around the room as all our relatives fell silent. I could feel the tension building as everyone turned to stare at us. I had no idea what money he was talking about, but it was clear my sister did. Before I continue this dramatic story, let me know where you're watching from. In the comments, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more shocking family revelations like mine. Our family has always been close-knit, but complicated in ways that most outsiders never see. My father, Richard Walker, built his business empire from scratch. He's a self-made man who values hard work, financial responsibility, and above all, honesty. Growing up, we all knew that lying to Dad was the ultimate sin in our household. My mother, Diana, is his perfect complement. A former elementary school teacher, she's the peacemaker, always trying to smooth over any tensions and keep everyone happy. Then there's my sister, Natalie. 3 years younger than me, she's always been the wild child of the family. Where I followed rules, Natalie broke them. Where I saved money, she spent it. Despite our differences, we grew closer as adults, or at least I thought we had. My brother Jason is the youngest and has always been Dad's favorite, though nobody openly acknowledges this. He followed in our father's footsteps, joining his investment firm right after college, and Dad couldn't have been prouder. Our family story is the classic American dream. My parents came from modest backgrounds and worked incredibly hard to build wealth and provide opportunities for us. The annual family gathering at our lake house is a tradition that goes back 15 years, a chance to celebrate their success and our togetherness as a family. My relationship with Natalie has evolved over time. We were fiercely competitive as children, fighting for our parents' attention and approval. As we grew older, that competition faded and we became confidants, or so I believed. I took the safe, responsible path, becoming a hospital administrator with a steady income and a solid retirement plan. Natalie took risks opening her fashion boutique 2 years ago. She has an incredible eye for style, but I knew she struggled with the financial side of the business. Still, I never imagined just how bad things had gotten. Looking back, there were warning signs. In the weeks leading up to the family gathering, Natalie had been avoiding my calls. When we did speak, our conversations were brief, and she seemed distracted. I chalked it up to stress from her business, never suspecting what was really going on. Had I been more attentive, perhaps I could have prevented the explosion that was about to rock our family to its core. That fateful weekend started like any other family gathering. Everyone arrived on Friday afternoon, the coolers were stocked with drinks, and Mom had prepared all our favorite foods. Cousins, aunts, and uncles mingled on the deck, overlooking the lake, catching up on each other's lives. Everything seemed normal, joyful even. There was no hint of the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface of our picture-perfect family. The confrontation came out of nowhere during Saturday afternoon lunch. We were all seated around the large outdoor dining table on the deck, enjoying grilled chicken and Mom's famous potato salad. The conversation had been flowing easily, touching on work updates, vacation plans, and the usual family gossip. "So, Emily," my dad said suddenly, his voice cutting through all other conversation, "what did you do with the $200,000? The question hung in the air. Everyone stopped eating, forks suspended midway to mouths. I stared at my father, certain I had misheard him. $200,000. What are you talking about? I asked, genuinely confused. Dad's expression hardened. The money that was withdrawn from the family investment account. $200,000. Gone. Over the past 6 months. I shook my head, my confusion mounting. Dad, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't take any money. That's when I noticed Natalie. My sister's face had drained of all color. She was staring down at her plate, her hands trembling slightly as she set down her fork. I discovered it while preparing the quarterly tax documents. Dad continued, pulling an envelope from beside his chair. $200,000 withdrawn in multiple transactions. The bank confirmed that someone accessed it using authorized credentials. My Uncle Jack cleared his throat awkwardly. My cousin Sarah suddenly became very interested in her water glass. The tension was suffocating. "Richard, maybe we should discuss this later," my mother suggested, quietly looking around at our extended family. Dad ignored her. "No, Diana. This is a serious matter and I want answers now." I felt my face flush with embarrassment and indignation. "Dad, I swear I didn't take any money. I wouldn't even know how to access the family account." "Then how do you explain this?" He slid a paper across the table toward me. It was a bank statement showing multiple withdrawals, each between $10,000 and $20,000. My name was clearly listed as the account user. "I can't explain it because I didn't do it," I insisted, my voice rising with panic. "Someone must have used my information without my knowledge." All eyes shifted to Natalie, who looked like she might pass out at any moment. Mom reached over and placed a hand on hers. "Natalie, honey, do you know something about this?" she asked gently. My sister's eyes filled with tears. The uncomfortable silence from our extended family members was deafening. Several of my cousins exchanged glances, clearly wishing they could disappear. "I might have borrowed some money," Natalie finally whispered so quietly I could barely hear her. "But not 200,000. Nothing close to that amount." Dad's disappointment was palpable. "You stole from our family account, used your sister's credentials. How could you do this?" Mom attempted to defuse the situation again. "Let's all take a deep breath. I'm sure there's an explanation." But Dad was too angry to be calmed. "An explanation for theft, for lying, for betraying our trust." My brother Jason, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "This is unbelievable. How could you be so irresponsible, Natalie?" I felt torn. I was hurt that Natalie had apparently used my information to access the account, but I also felt protective of my sister, who was clearly falling apart before our eyes. "Dad, I think we should continue this conversation privately," I suggested, noticing how uncomfortable our extended family had become. Several of my aunts and uncles were already making excuses to leave the table. "This family has no secrets," Dad declared firmly. "If money was stolen, we discuss it openly. That's how it's always been." Natalie suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the deck. "That's not true. This family is built on secrets and lies, and you've never supported my dreams, never believed in me," she shouted, tears streaming down her face now. The lunch was officially over. As relatives hastily retreated to other parts of the property, I knew our family would never be the same after today. Dad instructed everyone to meet in his study, away from the prying ears of our extended family. Mom, Dad, Natalie, Jason, and I filed into the wood-paneled room. Dad closed the door firmly behind us. "Explain yourself, Natalie," he demanded, standing behind his desk while the rest of us sat like children called to the principal's office. Natalie's composure completely crumbled. Between sobs, she confessed that her business was failing much worse than any of us had realized. "The boutique hasn't made a profit in over a year," she admitted. "I tried everything, cut every corner, but nothing worked. Then this investor came along, promised to help me turn things around." "What investor?" Dad interrupted. "His name is Victor. He put in $50,000 initially, but when the business still struggled, he threatened to call in the debt plus interest. He said he had connections that could ruin me if I didn't pay." Natalie wiped her eyes. "I was desperate and ashamed. I couldn't come to you and admit I had failed so completely." "So you stole from us instead?" Jason asked incredulously. "I borrowed," Natalie insisted. "I was going to pay it back once I turned things around." Dad sat down heavily in his leather chair. "How much did you take exactly?" Natalie hesitated. "About 85,000. The room went silent as we all did the math. "That still leaves $115,000 unaccounted for," Dad said slowly, looking between me and Natalie. I threw up my hands. "I told you I didn't take anything." Dad turned to his computer and began pulling up other financial records. "If Natalie only took 85,000, Then where's the rest? I noticed something strange. Mom had gone very quiet, staring down at her hands folded in her lap. Maybe we should check all the family accounts for unusual activity, Jason suggested, moving to stand behind Dad at the computer. Dad began pulling up statement after statement. Suddenly he paused, staring at the screen. Diana, he said slowly, turning to my mother, what are these withdrawals from our personal account? Mom didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Mom, I prompted gently. She finally looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. I took the rest of the money, she confessed quietly. Dad looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. Why? To protect Jason, she whispered. All eyes turned to my brother, whose face had gone as pale as Natalie's had earlier. What is she talking about, Jason? Dad demanded. My perfect little brother, Dad's pride and joy, seemed to physically shrink before our eyes. I have a gambling problem, he finally admitted, his voice barely audible. It started in college with poker games, then sports betting, then online casinos. I kept thinking I could win it all back, but it just got worse. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. None of us spoke for several long moments. How bad is it? Dad finally asked. Bad, Jason replied. I almost lost my job. I was taking longer and longer lunches to place bets. I started borrowing from friends, then loan sharks. Mom found out when one of them came to the house looking for me. Mom reached for Dad's hand across the desk. I couldn't tell you, Richard. You think so highly of Jason. I was trying to protect him, give him time to get help. I sat there stunned by these revelations. My sister had stolen money to save her failing business. My mother had taken money to cover my brother's gambling debts. Our perfect family was nothing but a house of cards, and it was collapsing around us. Let me get this straight, Dad said, his voice dangerously quiet. My son is a gambling addict. My daughter is a thief. And my wife has been lying to me for, how long, Diana? 2 years. Mom admitted, not meeting his eyes. Dad's world was visibly crumbling. His perfectly curated family image, the success story he loved to share with colleagues and friends, was disintegrating before his eyes. Jason broke down completely, then confessing everything. How he'd gambled away his entire savings. How he'd taken out high-interest loans. How he'd almost been fired when his boss caught him placing bets during client meetings. Why didn't you come to me? Dad asked, his anger giving way to hurt. Because you always expect perfection, Jason said. You parade me around like your greatest accomplishment. How could I tell you I was a failure? Natalie jumped in. He's right, Dad. You've always demanded we all be perfect. My boutique isn't just struggling, it's completely bankrupt. I'm going to lose everything, and I was too ashamed to tell you because I knew how disappointed you'd be. So instead you stole from the family and put your sister's name on it, Dad shot back. I used Emily's login information when we were on vacation together, Natalie admitted. Her laptop was open and I saw her save her passwords. I never meant for her to be blamed. I felt a deep sense of betrayal. Natalie, we shared a room for a week. You looked through my computer while I was sleeping. How could you? Mom interjected. We're all at fault here. I've known about Jason's addiction for 2 years and said nothing. I've been enabling him, thinking I was helping. Dad stood up suddenly, bracing himself against the desk. Richard, Mom asked, concerned by his sudden movement. I haven't been honest with you either, he admitted. I've been having chest pains for months. The doctor says I need surgery, but I didn't want to worry any of you. The revelations kept coming, each one more shocking than the last. Our entire family had been living in a web of secrets and lies. Every person I thought I knew so well had been hiding their true selves. So while you've been lecturing us about financial responsibility, you've been hiding serious health problems, I asked, unable to keep the accusation from my voice. That's different, Dad insisted. Is it? Natalie challenged. You created this family culture where we all have to pretend to be perfect, where we can't show weakness or ask for help. And look where it's got us. Jason stood up. This is all my fault. if I hadn't started gambling. No, Mom interrupted. It's my fault for covering it up. It's my fault for stealing, Natalie added. The accusations flew back and forth. Each confession led to another revelation, another betrayal, another crack in our family's foundation. I tried to mediate to find some way to pull us back from the brink, but I only got caught in the crossfire. By the end of the conversation, we were all emotionally exhausted. Dad stormed out. Mom went after him. Jason retreated to his room. Natalie sat crying at the desk. Our family was falling apart, and I had no idea how to put it back together. The family gathering completely disintegrated. Our extended relatives made polite excuses and left early. Mom and Dad weren't speaking to each other. Jason locked himself in his room. Natalie alternated between crying and angry outbursts. I couldn't take the tension anymore. I left the house and walked down to the lake, finding a quiet spot on the small dock where I used to fish with Dad as a child. I sat there, legs dangling over the water, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Our family had always seemed so perfect, so solid. Now I realized it was all a performance. Each of us playing our assigned roles, never letting anyone see behind the curtain. Dad was the successful patriarch, Mom, the supportive wife, Jason, the golden child, Natalie, the creative free spirit, and me, the responsible one. We'd been playing these parts for so long that we'd lost sight of our real selves. As I sat there, I had to confront an uncomfortable truth. I was just as guilty as the rest of them. I too participated in our family's performance of perfection. I never told them about my struggles with anxiety, which had gotten so bad last year that I'd started seeing a therapist. I hadn't told them that Tom and I had broken up 3 months ago after 5 years together. I'd been presenting an image of success and happiness while feeling increasingly lost in my career. The water lapped gently against the dock posts as the sun began to set. I heard footsteps on the wooden planks behind me and turned to see Natalie approaching, her eyes red from crying. "Can I join you?" she asked tentatively. I nodded and she sat down beside me, both of us staring out at the water. "I'm so sorry, Emily," she said after a long silence. "I never meant to drag you into this." "Why didn't you just ask for help?" I asked. "You know I would have done whatever I could." Natalie picked at a splinter on the dock. I was desperate to prove I could make it on my own. The boutique was supposed to be my big success story, something that would finally make Dad proud. When it started failing, it felt like I was failing as a person. "So you risked our relationship, broke the law, and nearly destroyed our family instead." "I wasn't thinking clearly," she admitted. The more the business struggled, the more panicked I became. It was like quicksand. The harder I fought, the deeper I sank. We sat in silence for a while. "Do you think we can ever fix this?" she finally asked. I thought about our family, about the cracks that had always been there beneath the polished surface. Not if we keep pretending. Not if we keep hiding our true selves. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're all guilty of maintaining this illusion of perfection. Look at me. I act like everything's great, but Tom and I broke up months ago. I hate my job. I have panic attacks. But I've never told anyone in the family because I didn't want to shatter this image of having it all together." Natalie looked surprised. "I had no idea." "Exactly. Just like we had no idea about Jason's gambling or Dad's health problems. We're strangers living in the same family." As the sky turned purple with twilight, Natalie and I talked honestly for the first time in years. About our fears, our failures, our hopes. And gradually, a plan began to form in my mind. "I think I know what we need to do," I said, finally standing up and reaching out my hand to help her up. "It's time for a real family meeting. No masks, no performances, just truth." I gathered everyone in the living room later that evening. Mom and Dad sat on opposite ends of the sofa, the distance between them symbolic of the rift that had opened. Jason perched uncomfortably on an ottoman while Natalie curled up in an armchair. I remained standing, suddenly feeling the weight of responsibility. "We need to talk," I began. "Really talk, maybe for the first time ever in this family." "There's nothing left to say," Dad replied stiffly. There's everything left to say, I countered. But first, we need new ground rules. Complete honesty, no matter how painful, and no judgment. I looked around at their skeptical faces. I'll start, I said, taking a deep breath. I've been seeing a therapist for anxiety for the past year. Tom and I broke up 3 months ago because I was too afraid to tell him I don't want children. And I'm thinking about quitting my job because despite the title and the money, I'm deeply unhappy. The surprise on their faces would have been comical in any other situation. Your turn, I said, looking at each of them. One by one, they opened up. Dad acknowledged how his obsession with maintaining a perfect family image had created a culture of fear and secrecy. I never wanted you kids to struggle like I did, he admitted. But in trying to protect you from failure, I made it impossible for you to be human. Mom confessed to enabling the secrecy. I thought I was keeping the peace, but I was just helping us avoid the hard conversations we needed to have. Jason committed to getting professional help for his gambling addiction. I'll pay back every cent, even if it takes years. Natalie laid out a plan to close her boutique properly and rebuild her life. I need to accept that my dream business failed, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure. Together, we created a repayment plan for the money and set up weekly family meetings where we could continue to speak honestly about our lives, our struggles, and our needs. For the first time, I felt like we were seeing each other clearly without the filters and facades we'd all been hiding behind. 6 months later, our family looks very different. Dad had his surgery and is recovering well. He and Mom are in marriage counseling, working through decades of communication issues. Jason is 6 months sober from gambling and attending regular GA meetings. Natalie closed her boutique and is working as a stylist while developing a more realistic business plan for the future. As for me, I've stopped pretending to have it all figured out. I'm dating again, but taking it slowly. I switched departments at the hospital to a role that feels more meaningful. Most importantly, I'm learning that being authentic is far more valuable than appearing perfect. Our family still has problems, still has arguments, still struggles. But now we do it together in the open. The healing has been slow and sometimes painful, but real. Through this crisis, I've learned that the strength of a family isn't measured by its successes or appearance, but by its ability to face failure and hardship together. The greatest lie we ever told was that we needed to be perfect to be worthy of love. The truth is, it's in our imperfections, our vulnerabilities, and even our failures that we find our deepest connections. Have you ever had to face a difficult truth in your family? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, behind every perfect family photo is a group of imperfect humans just doing their best. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage in your own journey toward authenticity.